if you need, if you have it,
So got it.
you're good to go.
Yes. I
All
clicked
right.
on it.
Hello.
I'm supposed to.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, we're rolling. That's great. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Talk to Danielle podcast. I am your host, Danielle C. Baker. And before we get started on the topic, I'm just going to say make sure to like, subscribe, or follow whichever platform you're on right now so that you can get access to all of the upcoming episodes and access to the previous episodes. Today, we are talking to Sroda Aglagoh. And again, I talked to Sroda earlier to say I worked all week in French. So this podcast may be interesting because I'll be stumbling over my words all day. But Sroda is, I like to say she's a very good friend of mine. We share a lot of the same interests, a lot of the same passion, and we kind of have the same life philosophies. I think we share a lot of it, even though we haven't officially met in person. And we're coming up. It does, yeah. And today we're going to be talking about the silent struggles of a teenager. We know very well that teenagers stop talking when they reach those wonderful years. And there is quite a bit of concern right now with the mental health awareness, well-being, and of course, there are more and more suicidal cases or tendencies. So Sroda will share her wisdom and her knowledge on that. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here for one thing. And of course, to discuss such a difficult topic um, where society in general, I think people like to pretend like it's not happening and act like every teenager is just having a great old time and jumping around, loving the music and just dancing and great. Yeah.
Not the case. They're hiding it. Yeah.
They're hiding it. There's a lot going on. And I'm one of those people that would advocate for teens and youth always, and children in general, because I recognize that they're overlooked. They're overlooked and just say, oh, you got no problems. All you have to do is just do your schoolwork and worry about grades, and that's it. And I'm like, that is far from the truth.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. And when I tell parents and adults, please cut them some slack, they think, oh, well, this generation, they think everything should be handed to them. Well, I remember my generation, we didn't have as much information. We were not inundated with so much information on a daily seconds. We didn't have. So I gotta tell you, I had anxiety growing up, but it wasn't to this extent what these kids are dealing with.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot, and we expect them to behave like grown-ups, but they don't have that ability yet. They're still discovering themselves, still discovering the world. And like you said, we just kind of brushed them off to say, oh, come on, get over it, or grow up, or, you're just giving me a hard time, that they're really just trying to reach out. Before we dive right into all of this, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here?
My goodness. It's a long story, but I'll do my best to cut it short. I was one of those strange teens because I don't know if I mentioned it to you. I didn't know how to read, write, or speak English until I was 15. Actually, no.
Oh, wow.
At 15, I couldn't read, write, and speak. It took me a year. My dad brought me to Canada, to Saskatchewan, Regina, Saskatchewan. Americans call it Regina, but Canadians call it Regina.
It's Regina, yes.
Yes. So for that reason, when he brought me in, I remember everybody was telling him, give up on her because, quote unquote, she's a girl. Let her learn how to sew or do hair. Because if you waste money, that's what the words were. If you waste money on her, she's just going to become somebody's housewife and it'll be a waste of your money. And so my dad was like, but she's still my child, though. I have to educate her.
Mhm.
And they were like, oh, and my dad's nickname is Sugar. So they were like, Sugar, just let her be. She's a girl. Don't waste your time. That's nonsense. She's gonna become a good housewife. Just let her be. And he kept insisting. He said, you know what? I remember when she was 5 years old, when she would go to school and preschool or grade school and come home, she would recite everything she learned that day. She wouldn't stop. So
Mhm.
I think there's something that she's smart enough to learn a thing or two. And they were like, well, one of my dad's brother said, oh no, she's too dumb. Her brain is too cold. Even the water in a cooler is warmer than her brain. So she's just too stupid.
Wow.
And my dad was like, well, I spoke to my daughter and I asked her if I take her to Canada, would she learn? And she said, yes, she would learn. And as far as I'm concerned, her word is enough for me and I will take her. And of course, everybody goes, well, she's just fooling. She just wants to go to Canada. Needless to say, I got to Saskatchewan and they put me in the beginning, they put me in a French school, French immersion school. And I was having a lot of difficulty, angry, and I wanted to fight the kids because they would make fun of me because I couldn't understand. And here's a little joke. Um, One time I was so frustrated, so I'm speaking all kinds of stuff. I mean, I'm not even understanding what I'm saying, but I'm speaking my language. I'm speaking another language, and I'm speaking because I know how to speak other languages that are from Ghana. So
Mhm.
I started speaking and messing. So then they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, calm down." Well, here's the thing: I don't understand calm down. To me, I meant calm down. So I started going literally lowering my body down because I couldn't
Yeah.
understand the words they were speaking to me.
Mhm.
Then, so that particular day was very difficult. And then lunchtime came. I was angry as it was already. I went to the convenience store and I remember I went to buy a loaf of bread. And then a gentleman, the guy behind the counter, told me that I needed a nickel more. Well, I didn't understand what a nickel meant. And he insisted. And nickel. So this is what I've learned for people. When they think you don't understand a language, they assume you're stupid or you're deaf, or maybe you just can't hear loud enough. So they need to speak louder and yell
Yes.
at you. So he's doing all of that. I'm mortified. So now I'm standing there crying. And a gentleman comes over right from behind me and started yelling at him and then said, stop it. She doesn't understand. Why would you do this to her? And he threw the money at him and said, here's your nickel. And then so I'm just, bowing and saying, thank you so much. Thank you. And then I'm crying. He said, it's okay. Bye-bye. And I left. That night, I was so angry and I wanted to just do I didn't even know what I was doing. I took my backpack and I started walking. And thank goodness my dad got home and started searching for me. I was running away from home.
Mhm.
I didn't feel like I belonged. I didn't feel like I was where I was supposed to be. I felt alone, lost, angry, and I wanted to lash out, but I didn't know who. So I said, I'm just going to leave. But leave to where? This is October in
Yeah.
Saskatchewan. It's
That's what I
cold.
was going to say. Saskatchewan, if nobody knows what it is, it's just a flat piece of land that goes on forever.
Yes.
See Sroda walk away for hours. We would still see her in the horizon. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm walking, and then he's like, where are you going? I'm like, getting away from here. Because he got home, he couldn't find me. So he got in his car and he started driving to find me. And he saw me on the sidewalk walking. Thank goodness he brought his car next to me and started. So I rolled the window down and said, come on, get in. I'm like, no. And he's like, what's going on? I'm like, I bit more than I could chew. I don't want to be here. Why did you bring me here? Why did you even sell me such pipe dreams that I could learn? This thing's so hard. I'm so stupid. Why would you even try? Why would you even believe me? Why would you sell me lies that I could do all these things? You should have just left me where I was. And he said, no. And I said, why did you do this? Why did you put me in this thing? Did you just want to mock me? He said, you're my daughter. I just want the best for you. And I was so angry. And meanwhile, I'm cold because I have a spring jacket on. I have no clue what is happening. So
Yeah.
I put my hands in my pocket and I'm still walking and I'm going like that. And then, because it's cold, no hat,
No,
nothing.
the nose starts running, and that's normal. But if you don't know, you don't know.
You don't know.
You're just
And it's my
you're just
first year.
leaking. Yeah.
So right then, he's like, okay, I tell you what, it's pretty cold. Why don't you sit in the car and warm up? And I was like, no, you're gonna trick me. And he said, what am I gonna trick you for? And I was like, you're gonna trick me. And he said, well, tell you what, I promise you, sit down, warm up, and when you're warm, you tell me exactly where you're going. I will take you and drop you off. I don't know. So I couldn't speak. And he's like, oh, tell me, I'll take you. And I was very confused. And then I started venting. And he sat quietly and just listened and watched me vent. I was angry, and everything I thought I knew that I was angry about, he started telling me, actually, it's not true. I really wanted you, and I still
Mm.
love you, and you're my child. I didn't abandon you. I left you in the care of somebody I care about. And unfortunately, you were left, and I sent a lot of money for you to get educated. It never went to you. So I didn't abandon you. I didn't
Mhm.
leave. I love you and I want you. You're mine. And right then, I don't know what happened. My shoulders dropped. So I just started crying. And he helped me. Didn't say a word. Then he turned the car around. He didn't say a word. We got home. He parked and just wanted me to just do what I wanted. And we sat in the car. Then I asked him, aren't we getting out of the car? He said, oh, do you want to come home?
Oh wow.
Then I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Said, okay, let's go. I've already talked to somebody. We're going to take you out of that school and put you in an English immersion school where
Mhm.
they have ESL and you'll be able to get what you need. I promise you, you will speak English. I got there, and by the next year, this was happening in 1984, in the fall of 1984. And then by spring 1985, I graduated with a class and went into high school.
Mm.
And the teacher, I remember my math teacher and the English teacher, they were saying, you are our best students. And I didn't understand it because I looked at them and I thought, what do you mean I'm your best students? And they said, Sroda, you came here, you couldn't read and write, and here you are competing with the rest of your class. And then the teacher took out the math book the first week and showed me, he said, that was you. And he had to put two plus and then left a blank. And then, oh, I'm sorry. And then he put um, the square and it equals 5. And I had to fill in the blank. That was the
Mm.
level I started at. Then he took out the English paper and showed me. He said we had to write cat, and they wrote C, and then left the A blank. And I had to choose from a bunch of letters and
Mm.
let them know which one was the best one. And to my surprise, I recognized something. That's when I was like, that was me. So it's almost like I had a complete transformation from that
Right.
to this person, and I couldn't believe that was me. It's almost like I completely forgot who that was.
Mhm.
and became this. So needless to say, that was the long part. The shorter version, after that, I managed to I got through high school. And then in high school, I had this brainiac idea to tell my dad that I wanted to go to Ghana to go and experience education there. Even though I lived there until 15, I felt like I was, uh, based on the amount of trauma and the difficulty I was going through, I couldn't learn. Even though I would go to school, but I was not present. My mind was not present. So I
Mm,
wasn't absorbing anything. And even the schools that they would send me to, it was the, bottom of the pile. So
mm,
I didn't learn anything, even though, yes, money was being sent, but I couldn't go into any of the private schools. So and so the stress of what was going on with my life, I just stayed there and went home, and it's almost like I had a complete different life. So I said I wanted to go back. So I went back there. My dad was frightened, like, oh my gosh. And I was like, Dad, things are going to be different. This time I have a bank account. You told me I should open a bank account. So I'm going to open a bank account. You will send me money directly. So if I need books or school fees and everything, I'm paying because you send me the money. There's no intermediary. It goes straight to the school to me. So once did that and came back to here, I went back and finished the 12th grade. So I was really delayed. Then from there, I went to UFR, got my undergrad in psychology and a minor in sociology. From then on, I traveled to the States because I got married, and then family took over. Then I decided, okay, I wanted to go back to school and do what I meant to do in the first place, to be a therapist, because I spoke to my dad. Apparently, I was 16 when I told him that I was going to do something like that. And they were laughing. They didn't know what that meant. I didn't even know what I meant. I just spoke. And to find out that I started doing that. And now I work as a therapist and a counselor and a life coach.
that's amazing. That's an incredible story. And I got a lot more information from because I know I knew bits of your story, but that is incredible. And then you did go through all of this, came out of that, and you touched on some important points there as a teenager, where you just it's too much. You don't know how to process it. You don't know what to do. You don't know where you're going. You
Yes.
don't understand what's happening on the inside. You don't understand what's happening on the outside, and that is the reality of our teenagers.
Yes.
And they're hiding it. They're keeping it in silent, and so if they do get emotional and moody and all of that, there's a lot going on there. And many parents um, are overwhelmed with this, or they get caught up in their emotional state as well. And so it just kind of piles on. So I know we talked about this before, but um, why would it be important for a parent to say, okay, maybe we should seek outside help? I can't seem to be able to get to the bottom of things. Let's go check with a therapist, a counselor. There are life coaches for teenagers that are available now as well, which is wonderful. But uh, what would your advice be to that? Why would it be important to seek out a third party to try to get to the bottom of things?
I think the most important thing is recognizing the fact that you are overwhelmed as an adult and as a parent. Be vulnerable to yourself and to the situation and admit that. That's the most important thing. Because sometimes our ego can block us from getting access to help, information that's out there, and above all, the healing that both the child and the family needs to have. You are saying that, parents get overwhelmed. One of the things I believe, and I'm sure others who eventually figure this out, I'm sure the others have, I just haven't talked to them yet. But when a parent is seeing a child do something and it bothers them that much and is causing triggers, there's something about that. That means when you were at that age, something was happening. That's why you're able to recognize this in this child and it bothered you this much. Instead of recognizing it and find out, hey, there are some emotional regulations that I didn't engage in. And now the child is exhibiting it. I'm finding it's a nuisance because I recognize myself in that. and they want to pull away. So when things start happening like that, be vulnerable.
Mhm.
Take the ego out of the way. Ask help. And I always say our children are one of our best parenting teachers. A child will tell you what they need. Sometimes they may not be able to use their words. But if you listen carefully and watch carefully and become in tune, you'll be able to follow that dance
Mhm.
and go back and forth and then be like, oh, okay, okay, we can, let's go and talk to someone. But don't just send the child and say, you know what, here's my child, fix them. Something's wrong with them. Anytime parent comes to me, I was like, wait a minute, you've had this child for how many years? And now you're coming to me and saying I should fix them. I don't fix anything. Both of you are going to have to work on this. And I'm sorry, especially when a child is exhibiting something, I always tell the kids, you're the strongest one in the home because there's a dysfunction and everybody
Yeah.
is refusing or scared to speak. You are the one that is saying, I'm going to speak up. So when a child is acting up, look to self. Start there. Then start going with family therapy, family counseling, family coaching. When that starts happening, then you start having the child seen alone because that child will feel comfortable and begin to model what the parents are doing, that they're capable of opening their emotions. I can do so too.
That's great. And it's a great process to kind of break that cycle because, like you said, it's something that the parents have not addressed themselves, that they're trying to tuck away. And that child, that dysfunction is a superpower. It's their
Yes.
superpower. That's how you can heal. And it's wonderful. And there's a lot of parents, because now we're building up to this, the concerns with suicide. Um, what would be, when would you say it's time? Because a lot of parents are not sure, is it just because they want attention? Are they serious? You can start seeing the signs that if you're paying attention, like you say, because
Yeah.
teenagers are silent. So you have to pick up on the nonverbal and the body language and everything and the grunts and all of that. That's a way to communicate. When would you say it's time to actually seek help? What would be the signs that we need to, it's not just attention? So before something happens and we regret not doing anything beforehand, what could the signs be?
Well, the first sign I think is the most glaring one, self
Mhm.
isolation.
Yeah.
The self isolation and not wanting to communicate with the rest of the family and just want to be in their room alone. And then the next one is the explosion. Simple things come up and they explode in rage, in
Mhm.
anger. And then the parents are at loss or like, and then a lot of them say, well, they're just moody. Yes, but not every day.
Right.
So that should give you a clue. Diet changes, and sometimes even clothing, their attire start to change. There's no difference, like maybe some girls maybe growing up and then they may want to wear a little more provocative clothes. I'm not like talking about that type because that's a rite of passage. They're growing and they're curious about their body. And then boys may do so too. And they may start wanting, oh yeah, and start wanting to groom themselves a little different. I'm not talking about that kind. Those are within the normal type of developmental markers for children and for teens and youth. However, when girls wants to start covering up, don't and they don't want to be seen,
Mhm.
start having severe anxiety. Sometimes the simplest thing is when they have family over that they've known, they've talked to, the people come and then they don't even know how to express themselves anymore.
Mhm.
They don't know what to make eye contact. All these are telltale signs. And of course, you will notice they're covering up, even their wrists is constantly covered up. Signs things are not going right. Something is going on. Start seeking help then. Start asking questions. And then asking questions, it's not about sitting face to face with the child. So tell me what's going on with you. I promise you they will not speak. 10 chances out of 10, they don't speak. But take them to the baseball park. If it's a boy or girl, nowadays girl play baseball. Anybody plays baseball. Start throwing the ball around. The chip comes down a little bit because now they see that you're willing to spend time with me. I'm not a nuisance. Because these are the dialogues they're having in their head. When you give them that chance, they start coming around and be like, you know, sometimes it's hard to do certain things. Like what? Open the dialogue. And those are the signs you start noticing. So once things start happening that way, ask. Some of the things I also always advocate for families, do family cooking. In the beginning, they start getting angry with you. Well, why should I? Well, we're a family. Let's do it. That's why it's nice to start it young. Bring those little benches and let the child stand on it. And then get them a little tray. Get them the placemat or the chopping board. Give them the knife, the usual knife that you eat, the table knife, nothing sharp, and say, cut up some onions for me. And they're like, it hurt. Well, do some red peppers, green peppers. Yeah. So now when they're teen and you ask, it's not so foreign. And you have to try and access that. So the moment you start seeing all these signs of a child wanting to be alone, wanting to separate themselves from everybody, because with that separation, they start feeling like they're not part of the family. They feel strange. They don't belong, because these are thoughts that are going in their mind. And then the next thing is, nobody loves me. By the time you know the next thing, they'll start saying, they won't even miss me if I'm not here. That's when you know. But the fact that they won't say it, but something will happen and be like, we're all going somewhere. Come on, let's go. Now, they don't even want me there anyways. You would think it was just a child being rude. No. These are thoughts in their head. They're letting you know, but they won't tell you. I'll give you, for example, I had a client a long time ago. Said she was being bullied at school. And she was really angry about it. And I said, what was the bullying about? She said, she started growing quicker than most other classes, developmental wise. Her body was changing faster than the rest of the kids. So when things were happening, especially when her menses started, the teacher lied and said, oh, she was sick. Every time she's sick, and sent her to the nurse's office. So the kids all started ostracizing this child and bullying her. So then she self-isolated at school, comes home, self-isolate. Instead of speaking to the parents, she doesn't speak to the parents, but rather was saying they're the adult. And when the parents do ask, what's going on? Do you need some help? What's going on? The child wouldn't speak. And then she said, I wouldn't speak to them because I felt they're my parents. They should try harder. A teen will test you.
Yes.
They're testers. They'll test your nerves. They'll test your patience. And I was like, what? She said, yes. So I felt like I built a little cage and I was in there by myself. And I don't know why my parents didn't come for me. And I said, but they did ask you what was wrong, but they should have tried harder.
Yeah.
This is news for parents. If your teen is pushing you away, they're not pushing you away because they just want to. In the words of my niece, she said, I'm supposed to oppose you.
Yeah.
It's my job as a teen. What are you going to do about it? So you throwing your hands in the air is telling that child, you don't have what it takes.
Yeah.
So it's the perseverance of the parents to keep pushing. It's better to push and push and push, and they'll say you're overbearing than not to push at all, because then that child it perpetuates the idea that the lies they're hearing in their ear that you don't want them. You won't even miss them.
All right.
So that's definitely is important for parents to understand. Watch the sign and start doing something.
And it's important to get that message that yes, they're testing you, but it's also that you're basically the only person they can turn and kind of vent, and they want to see the testing to see if you really do care. So if you just give up after asking, we ask and they won't answer, so we'll want to respect their space because they're becoming adults, but it is necessary. And I like what you said, that it's better to keep pushing and they tell us to step off than to not do anything and then something happens and you'll just won't forgive yourself for it. We're all about what I like to do is talk about, everything that we go through, we often feel like we're the only ones. So parents will think that they have the only difficult teenager, or that, they're struggling, they're the only ones struggling, nobody wants to talk about it. And, so, or they make light of it. And so can you share it without getting into too much details, of course, but just to kind of show parents who are listening that they are not the only ones going through this. These are common incidents or issues. What kind of cases, what are the teenagers that are coming to you? What are they struggling with? What are they facing that when they come to you?
A lot of the stuff they're struggling with is being liked, being loved, acceptance. That drive to want to be accepted in the social norm is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, they want to they want to become an individual, but they still want to be, for lack of a better word, normal, in quotation marks, because they don't want people looking at them. And that's the other thing. In the moment your child doesn't want to be looked at, is also another sign.
Mm-hmm.
The moment your child start wanting, no, I just want to be the wallflower, I don't want anyone to notice me, something is wrong. Their self-esteem is down. They don't feel they belong. And then every teen struggles with their body. For the longest time, I thought it was only girls. No, it's boys too. Both genders are struggling. They're struggling to figure out their body. It's a normal thing. When you go to Erickson's stages of development, it's a normal thing for them to question. And they start wanting to know. And I think parents need to be open for that, for the discussion. Don't shun them. Because if you do, the person they will go to get the answers you're not going to like.
Yeah.
And teenagers struggle reaching their parents because parents get too busy and they think they should handle it. They're big enough now. Mm-hmm. But honestly, they need their parents. I used to think children need their parents the most when they are young, like when they can't fend for themselves. No, when they can fend for themselves, they need them even more, because now the questions and the stuff that they're facing are bigger.
That's right.
And they don't know what to do with it. They don't understand what is happening. So they need access to an adult they can go to, that they can trust. And then I hear this so often: don't trust teenagers. Let me explain something to you. Teenagers don't trust adults either.
Mm-hmm.
So we are sitting around and say, oh, don't trust a teen, don't trust a teen. Do you think they trust you? No, they don't. So we have to turn the table. You want us to trust them, and then they trust us? We have to show them
That's right.
by being trustworthy and then showing them that we trust them. Then they return a favor. It's amazing how much teens respect that.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
this is
They
one of the
just,
things they struggle with the most. And then when that happens, they turn around and internalize these negative thoughts. Hence, the suicidal ideation starts. And then self harm. Almost all my clients, I make sure I check their arms
mm,
because these are serious things. And one of the things I think parents need to also understand, there are a lot of things on social media that teaches children how to do this.
yeah, that's true.
It's very alarming. So we need to learn where they're going, what they're watching, and who is telling them what they're telling them.
Mhm. Yeah, because if they're not coming to you, they are going to someone. You want to make sure that they're going to the right people. It becomes a mentorship almost. Uh, I remember my son, who's 22, we were just actually talking about this week, and he had mentioned, says, I remember when I was younger and I just couldn't wait till I was an adult so that I could be free to do what I wanted. Because I realized now he's 22, he's still, a young adult. He says, but now I wish I could go back because I didn't
Yeah,
realize that I could be free to do what I wanted, but I wouldn't have the privileges of the child. So
yes,
now I'm on my own. And so you're right. They need that. It's like teaching them to walk just on a different level. They need to have that support and that encouragement and that safe place they can go to.
yes.
Uh, you've mentioned a lot. Actually, those are right now. I know people are taking notes of this, but if they get to the point where they're really concerned, a lot of parents don't know where to look for help. So would you be able to maybe help us with that as well? Who should they call? Who they go to
Well,
first?
in Virginia, where I live, um, we have something called the CS Board. It's a community service board, and they have access to crisis management. And so that's, when they call that a crisis management, they'll be able to get information. They start getting them in contact with a crisis management counselor who will come to the home and do an assessment. And that person will see the child for sometimes 6 weeks or
Yeah.
2 months before they transition them to the therapist.
Mm.
Okay. Um, there are lots of suicide assistance sites that they can go to. They're all online. Now, I know in Canada they also have some because I know my sibling in Toronto is currently volunteering for a teen suicide line.
Mhm.
They exist. So they can go online and look for that. Contact them and say, hey, I'm concerned. I would like someone to see my child. And that's the beginning. Then they put them to therapists. And then they start looking into things like if the therapist that the child is going to is used to treating the client or his or her clients holistically, then we start looking at nutrition. We start looking at what community services that are available for the child to be involved in. We start looking at what kind of religious or higher power um, practices that the child could get into. We start implementing things like yoga. We start implementing things like meditation. Get the child involved actively in their own lives.
Yes.
And then learning that what they're seeing presently is not the end.
Hmm.
I always understand this that nothing is permanent. The one thing we have in this world is change that is
Hmm.
constant. We are guaranteed to see this. Nothing stays the same. Everything changes. And because of that, teens can access all these programs, but they can't go there because they don't even know. Neither do the parents. So somebody, the parents, have to take a proactive approach
Hmm.
and starts looking online for these things. Crisis management is the first place. teen hotlines, teen suicide hotline. Look to the what social services have available for teens. You'll be surprised all the programs they have for them to assist them. They have mentorship programs. They have parent coaching. I've done that. I've done the court appointed parent coaching because of what is happening in the home and the teen. So there's a lot available for families, but they don't access it because they don't even know. And a lot of family things, it's all on them. No, you live in a community. There are services around. Go for that. Go online, go to crisis management, and you would see so many
Yeah.
information. And they can access that, contact them, and then ask questions. If they have a primary care physician they trust, they can ask them, and they will start the paperwork for them.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
would get things going for them.
Yeah. And for some parents that think that they may be, disturbing the community for something that may not be that serious, if it ends up not being so serious, still do it. Worst
Yeah.
thing, they will refer you to activities, because what you said is get the teenager and actively involved in their life. We need to hold them accountable so that they don't fall into that victim mentality of, oh, nobody loves me, I'm not worth anything, nobody will even notice if I'm gone.
Yes.
We do need to move them away, and if they are actively involved in something that they enjoy,
Mhm.
that kind of dissipates, because now
Yeah.
they're actually looking forward to something.
Yeah.
Uh, so try, if you're not sure, ask, seek the
Ask.
help. If anything, your child is going to see that you care, and
Yes.
that's going to
Yeah.
get things rolling as well. So it's also very important to get the
Yeah.
children actively involved in that.
Yeah.
And let's see. This is a question I always ask, because I could tell we could talk about this for a very long time.
Yes.
I hope that the listeners are getting quite a few notes, at least to know where to get started, and
Mhm.
to start paying attention to those signs, and knowing exactly where to look for help.
Yes.
Um, and I appreciate you so much for coming on for that. It's great.
You're welcome.
I always end the interviews with the one question for the guests, and that is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And that's a
Oh,
question I ask everybody.
the strangest thing when I saw when I came up upon this question, I was laughing. I started laughing because my niece, 11 years old, came to me and she said, Auntie, I'm going to ask you a question. I was like, what is it? She said, when you grow up, what do you want to be? And I was like, oh my goodness. Well, nobody has ever asked me that question, but I actually have a list. She's like, what?
I love it.
You have a list? And I was like, yeah, I have a list of things I want to do when I grow up. And she's like, you're the only adult that gets this question. Any adult I ask, they go, I'm already grown up.
I'm already doing it. That's right.
Yes. And I said, well, number one, I want to travel. That's one thing. There are countries that I want to see. I've got them on my list. I've got 180 of them. Okay.
Oh, that's amazing. That is amazing. You're gonna live for a very long time.
Yes. And then, thank you. And then I want to eventually get my memoir out. Um, Still working on it. I thought I was going to be done, but I'm still working on it. Get my memoir out, have it published, write more children's book. And then I also want to do, now you may think this is funny, but I want to learn how to ride a bike.
Oh,
And
wow.
I want to learn how to swim because I don't know. Those
Mm,
two things are very important to me, and I want to because I want to get over my fear and just do them. So those are the things I want to do when I grow up and
that's
just
amazing.
the life because like I said, I believe I came to this planet Earth to learn,
Mhm.
guide, and experience and be a part of it all. And I'm very excited about life.
And that's the way it should be. You did say the one constant thing about life is it's constantly changing. So we need to have these goals. And it's funny that you talked about your niece, because the reason why I ask is I was interviewed by a 9-year-old a few years back, and she was asking, because every adult asks a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? So that was part of her interview, and none of the adults they were just saying, but I'm already grown, I'm already doing it. And she would get frustrated, and her mom would say, just stop asking if it's so frustrating. And when she asked me, I told her, and she just lit up and she turned to her mom and she said, you see, I told you someone would get it.
Yes, we do exist. We do
We
get
get
it.
it. We
We
do have,
get
there
it.
are adults out there who get it. And
We
that's why I
get it.
told her, I promised her I would always ask that question to adults. So I'm really
Really,
glad that she played
it's an
along.
amazing question, because
Yeah.
we should always keep dreaming. Why should we stop dreaming? Just because my niece will say, Auntie, you're old. Now it's like, you know what? But I'll never stop dreaming.
That's right. That's right. That's all. It's so easy to dream and to give ourselves new challenges, and it gives us something to look forward to. So that's the message we're sending across. Now, you did mention you write children's books. You have your own podcast as well. And, for somebody who's been told she would never get it, you've studied, you have your own podcast, you're writing books. So good for showing them they were wrong. But how can people reach you? Where can they follow you? Where can they see you in action?
Um, well, the podcast is called Love, Forgive, Live. And so usually it's like when they go on YouTube, they can find it. It's all on audio. And so
Mhm.
I'm also on Facebook, and it's under the same name, Love, Forgive, Live podcast. Uh, 2 years ago, I used to do like live,
Mhm.
just speaking and talking to get myself used to being in front of camera and also speaking. So I started doing that. Oh, speaking of which, knock on wood, we hope one day when I grow up too, I'm adding maybe a TED talk, but maybe a lofty idea, but I am dreaming it. And it's
That's
one of the
right.
things I have on my list when I grow up. So
That's
they can
amazing.
find all the stuff on Facebook. And my email address is love, LUV, the number 4, give, GIVE, live, LIVE, at gmail.com. And it's strange enough, that's it's a very important, these 3 words are very important to me, because I had a dream that these are the patterns for
Mm.
humanity, for our lives, is to understand how we can love ourselves, love one another, and forgive one another, forgive ourselves, and live the life you're meant to live, live within the purpose and our calling for what we are as spiritual beings having a human experience, and write our stories. So those are the reason why I chose those words as a podcast.
That is amazing. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
for our audience, I will be adding those in the comments or description of the podcast. You will get those ways of reaching Sroda as well. So thank you so much. Like I said, I could have
Thank
you on all
you.
week.
I am
I'm
honored
so
and
glad we got to connect again.
happy.
Is to kind of back at so busy, but thank
Yeah.
you. You brought a lot of valuable information for us to help our teens, because they have a lot to teach us as well. So we need
Yes.
to keep that open. We can't shut it down. So
Yes.
thank you again. Thank you. And for everybody who's listening, stay safe, stay awesome, and we will talk soon.
Thank you very